Please subscribe to this channel for more videos related to Catholic Christian teaching. That is simple, which is not composed, and on that account also indivisible. Composition is a physical one when a thing is composed of parts which are really distinct from one another, whether substantially or accidentally. The composition is a metaphysical one when a thing is composed of logical or metaphysical parts, that is, determination of beings such as potency and act, genus and specific species. God is absolutely simple. The Fourth Lateran Council and the First Vatican Council teach that God is absolutely simple substance or nature. The expression simplex omnino asserts that with regard to God, any kind of composition, whether physical or metaphysical, is out of the question. From this, it follows that God is pure spirit, that is, God is neither a body nor a composition of a body and spirit. God is an absolute simple spirit, that is, in God there is no composition of any kind, whether of substance and accidents, essence and existence, nature and person, power and activity, passivity and activity, genus and specific species. God is a pure spirit, that is, God is neither a body nor a composition of body and spirit. The Old Testament, it is true, represents God in a visible human form by the employment of many anthropomorphisms and anthropopathisms. Indirectly, however, it expresses God's spiritualness by representing Him as supreme over matter and as the ruler of matter. Men, in distinction to God, are often called flesh. The New Testament designates God explicitly as a spirit. In Genesis chapter 1 verse 26, God is described anthropomorphically this way. Then God said, "Let us make humans in our image, according to our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the birds of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the wild animals of the earth, and over every creeping thing that creeps upon the earth." The viewpoint of the anthropomorphists, who, in a false interpretation of Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, held God to be like men, a psychophysical being, was rejected by the fathers as a foolish heresy. Tertullian, under Stoic influence, and starting from the assumption that everything actual is corporeal, ascribes to the spiritual essences, to God and to the soul, a certain corporeality. For who will deny that God is a body, even if He is a spirit? A spirit is a body of its own kind in its figure. Speculatively, the immateriality of God is implied by His pure actuality. Since no potentiality exists in God, and since potentiality is essential for matter, there cannot be any matter in God. God is an absolute simple spirit. That is, in God there is no composition of any kind, whether of substance and accidents, essence and existence, nature and person, power and activity, passivity and activity, genus and specific species. Sacred Scripture points to the absolute simplicity of God when it equates the essence of God with His attributes. St. Augustine says of the divine nature, "It is called simple because it is that which it possesses, except with regard to that which is said of one person in relation to the other." Speculatively, the absolute simplicity of God is derived from His pure actuality. Pure act is incompatible with any kind of composition, for the composed thing comes later than the composing parts and is dependent on these. Further, a composed thing presupposes an origin which brings the parts together, and thus the parts are in potency to the whole. The existence of virtual differences between the essence and the attributes of God and between the attributes themselves does not controvert the absolute simplicity of God, because the individual attributes do not designate parts of the divine essence, but the whole divine essence, although from the different points of view. There is only one God. Most of the creeds expressly teach the unicity of God. The Nicene-Constantinopolitan Creed declares, "I believe in one God." The Fourth Lateran Council declares, "There is only one true God." Opposed to this basic Christian dogma are pagan polytheism and Gnostic Manichaean dualism, which posit several eternal principles. It is a basic doctrine of the Old Testament and of the New Testament revelation that there is only one God. "Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one." St. Paul the Apostle of the Gentiles insistently stresses against pagan polytheism the necessity of belief in the one God. We know that an idol has no real existence in the world and that there is only one God. The pagan gods are not true gods, but lies and vanity, and things of nothing. The Fathers base God's unicity on His absolute perfection and on the unity of the world order, and defend it against the pagans, the Gnostics, and the Manichaeans. Tertullian writes against Marcion, "That which exists as the highest greatness must exist alone and have no equal, in order not to cease to be the highest essence. But as God is the supreme essence, our Christian truth has justly declared, if God is not one, then there is no God." St. Thomas speculatively derives the unicity of God from his simplicity, from the infinity of his perfections, and from the unity of the world. The history of comparative religion shows that religious development did not proceed from polytheism to monotheism, but on the contrary, from monotheism to polytheism. Again, it is not demonstrable that Yahweh, up to the time of the prophets, was merely the national God of the people of Israel, so that in spite of the veneration of the single God, the belief in the existence of several gods was firmly adhered to. It is the national God which has become a universal God. But at Sinai, the universal God entered into a covenant of association with Israel. Please go to YouTube Materiality channel, playlist Dogma on God, for the complete series of these materials.